Welcome to the third in our series of this webinar titled Ndpr Compliance, 5 Ways to Maximize Your Compliance Efforts with the Compliance Toolkit. Before I go on to the journey, let me thank everybody again for joining this session. It is, like I said, the third in the series of webinars which will be running throughout the course of the year to encourage stakeholders and product owners and movers and shakers within the data protection and data management industry, keeping them updated with the latest information and insights within data protection, but from an African context. Before I go on as well, can I just start by giving you a couple of pointers throughout which this webinar will be built on. Part and parcel of every structure within a data management company and within other companies or organizations that have a lot of value to be gained from within the data protection and data management industry. Now, as part of this process throughout the course of this webinar, let me just guide you through the journey. First of all, there will be a brief introduction to our panelists. Secondly, there will be an insight provided by Ndpr, primarily addressing what Ndpr is about and what are the drivers behind the regulation. Third, there will be an insight from panelists from the Nigerian Stock Exchange, primarily around what challenges they've faced during the Ndpr compliance journey and compliance with other regulations. Fourthly, we'll move on to another insight provided by Ndpr within the context of why organizations should and must take enforcement seriously. Moving on from there, there will be an insight from our humble representative from Dataworks Analytics, focusing primarily on the issues identified during an audit and ways the compliance tool can be used to resolve them. We will then move on to a demonstration of the Ndpr Compliance Toolkit, which is provided by our strategic partner, focusing primarily on content and preference management. Then we'll move on to a question and answer session, and then a final word naturally from our panelists. But before the final word, there will be a poll that will be run, primarily to gauge thoughts and any drivers for any questions I might have leading on to the next webinar. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a promotional offer. So without any ado, I shall now introduce you to our panelists. We have amongst our first panelists, Olufemi Daniel, who is the Ndpr Desk Officer at the National Information Technology Development Agency, Ndpr, where he leads the regulation, monitoring, and compliance function. Femi is a certified data protection officer, a lawyer, and the author of Introduction to Computer Law in Nigeria, as well as 3 other well-received and acknowledged books. He has expanded the knowledge base in the IT sector through numerous publications, essays, and speeches. He's also a founder of a separate think tank called Sectoral. Our second panelist is Oluyemi Obadere, who is currently the incumbent Information Security and Business Continuity Manager at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. She's an experienced governance, risk, and compliance professional with extensive knowledge and practical experiences in conducting, developing, and implementing business impact analysis, as well as risk assessment, business continuity management, disaster recovery, contingency planning, and information security, as well as management system compliance and control. I won't introduce myself too much, but I'm sure you'll be able to read from there. I'm the current incumbent CTO of Dataworks Analytics, and I'm primarily involved in developing the technical aspects of strategic partnerships with a range of organizations and setting up quality assurance and data protection processes. More about me later. Ade Adedeji, who is also a managing partner at Dataworks Analytics, is responsible for strategic direction of the data practice, which is focused on tackling the growing data challenges of leading organizations within the African market. Our fourth contributor is Marian Brachich. Marian is the Data Privacy Director at Postlovna Intelligenta, where he has been working for the last 10 plus years, which has been conservative. leading complex projects in the telecom and financial industry, as well as an architect on projects for introduction of analytical systems and intelligent data protection. Today, he's merely, as he likes to humbly call himself, a product owner of the Data Privacy Manager, which is the comprehensive privacy solution upon which the likes of the Ndpr compliance toolkit have been developed and built. As for the Ndpr compliance toolkit, it is our tool of preference and hopefully the tool of choice in the future, short and medium term, of organizations within Nigeria and hopefully in and around Africa in overcoming their challenges within the data protection landscape. Now, if I may move on, of course, we'll be going through our questions, of which there are a number of key pointers from those questions that will have to be taken. But before then, if I can just summarize very quickly, Nigeria, as with other African countries, has had to go through a period of challenges in trying to navigate the landscape. Now, in trying to get to that point, it has had to go through compliance and naturally get to a point where it can quickly achieve direction and guidance. In terms of where to go next, is anybody's guess. But if I may move on quickly to what those questions are, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, who is Femi Daniel. Femi Daniel will be providing an insight on the key question. What is Ndpr and what are the drivers behind the regulation? And consequently, what is the importance to Nigerian citizens and its residents? So if I may, I'd like to hand over to Femi Daniel at this point to take us through that first question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you so much for having us on this call. And thanks to all the participants on the call. Well, just to very briefly, what is the Ndpr and the driver behind it? The Nigerian Data Protection Regulation is the Nigeria's current national law on data protection and privacy. Actually, Nigeria has a constitutional right to privacy under Section 37 of the Constitution. But the issue of data protection and privacy, as we know it today, is not envisaged in the Constitution. And generally, world over, regulators, and institutions have tried to create laws that address issues of data protection, particularly because we are now in a digital age. Yes, so the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation came. Actually, there had been a data protection guideline of 2013 that was issued pursuant to Section 6C of the National Information Technology Development Act in 2013. But that guideline did not meet, though it had the principles and some of the basic things that Convention 108, which is like the foundation document for data protection principles, had. But in terms of punchiness, in terms of effectiveness, it was not really effective as it were. It was just a document and it wasn't being implemented. But after the GDPR came on board in 2016, we started reviewing and revamping our data protection laws. Number one, we had the option of looking at the various sectoral laws, and a lot of sectoral laws have data privacy and protection provisions. The central bank for the banking sector, insurance sector, health, and all that. But that actually is the method of the Americans, but we felt it was not efficient. It was not appropriate for our country, which when you look at the literacy level and then the nuances around the culture, you need to have a clear, single body of laws that people can go to find what they need to, particularly as it relates to data protection and privacy. So that was why in 2019, January 25th of 2019, the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation was issued as a subsidiary legislation, which, based on our Interpretation Act of 1963, you can actually make laws pursuant to the an enabling act, which was what was done with the Ndpr. And the good thing with that strategy is that because the Ndpr is issued as a kind of subsidiary legislation, for now, it has helped us to be flexible, and it has been of immense benefit to us, because many countries, particularly in Africa, that started out with data protection as a watertight, hard-coded law, have not been able to learn and become agile in their understanding of the principles of data privacy, because a lot of things are changing. Within 1 year of the EU GDPR coming to being, there have been 16 guidelines that were issued between 2018 and 2019 May. So that is to tell you that there is a lot that needs to be interpreted, that needs to be discussed, that needs to be, properly explicated. So that is just the foundation of the Ndpr. But the drivers behind it is we are actually there are many things that we can look at, but for me and for us at NIDA, one of the most important things we wanted to achieve, number one, of course, to the constitutional right to privacy was important, but also we realize if Nigeria does not have a data protection regulation that meets the basic standards of a data privacy law, our economy, our digital economy aspirations will be shut down. We will not be able to engage with Europeans, Americans, and some other countries that we're actually looking at, investing or partnering with Nigeria. And Nigeria is a key market, not just for Africa, but for the whole world, no matter how you see it. So in that regard, the data protection and privacy is an economic survivalist legislation that needed to be put on board, that needed to be implemented, and that we needed to be very, innovative around it if our, our economy is going to grow, if our people are going to have opportunities to continuously engage with people. So these are some of the issues. I mean, it's not feasible to say everything, about these issues, but I believe that this will give you an idea of our objective, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're trying to, go about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Femi, for that brief insight. I'll now like to call on Oluyemi Obadare, who is basically going to give us her insights as to what types of challenges have been faced by the Nigerian Stock Exchange during compliance with Ndpr and other regulations on its own journey. And of course, move on to her own experience within the same organization as someone with a responsibility for regulation. Primarily, how has she been able to monitor and ensure organizations comply with regulations? Oluyemi, I'd like to call on you now.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'll do a brief introduction so that I can probably put some things in perspective here. My name is Yemi Obadare. I actually work as the Business Continuity and Information Security, coordinator for the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Not entire compliance and regulation. There's an office, there's a seat that is dedicated towards that. But I work with Business Continuity and Information Security, and then regulation, governance, risk, and compliance is on my desk. So Ndpr comes as part of that, and we've been rolling with it. So I'm actually part of the team that worked with the data protection, the DPCO, to ensure that the exchange got certified, even at the wake of this in 2019. So thank you very much. Our journey so far, the the challenges, that the general implementation challenges across board, but I will be sharing from my experience how we were able to navigate these, and then talking from the information security perspective, what we have put in place to help us achieve both data privacy and data protection. So I think I want to just write on what the Mr. Femi Daniel from NIDA just said. So there's data privacy, there's data protection, and they're both two different things, but now interwoven, and then they're working together to ensure that the data subject rights is protected. So when you talk of data privacy, like we all know, it's a legal requirement. It gives authority to the data subject to be in charge of his personally identifiable information and let you know as a collector of such information where he ends. So I would describe it as an authorized use, the consent which I give you to play around with my information, where the data privacy talk about the technological, that's authorized access, so that you're talking about information security, you're talking about the cyber breaches and all that we see, particularly with the advent of COVID-19. So I will then go to the implementation challenges. Generally, it was a new regulation, so we had to work with the DPCO for the hand-holding, and you know how it is, it's a new terrain where we know that it's not an end in itself, it's a journey. So the first thing was in the scoping. We need to understand what the scoping is in order to be able to achieve the result. So how do we get this done? Who are the data collectors? Who are the usage of this data? How do we get this transferred? And even when we need to destroy this data within the enterprise, so we need to identify the department, the business processes that handle that. So that helps us to navigate the flow of data around the enterprise. And in some situation, there was a need to deploy a tool to be able to map this data across the enterprise. So after having done that, so that's comprised of various departments, the HR, the finance, the listing regulations, the markets, the sales and subscription, all the department that has to do with interfacing. And then the most important one is even from the physical point of entry, the visitors register, whatsoever you have in place, whether it's the analog one or the digitized one. That's another key point, because we keep asking people, where you coming from, from where, who do you want to see, your address. Those are required. Actually, if you have a visitor coming in, you should be able to find out where the visitor came from in the event that there's a need to do a contact tracing and all that. So when I say contact tracing, I'm not restricted to COVID-19 contact tracing. I just mean generally in case there's a breach or there's an incident, it gives you an idea of who had come in and what time did the person come in for incident management and review. So for the point of entry, we started from that too. Then another thing is that inconsistent interpretation of the articles, the regulatory requirements. We need to have an understanding of what this explicitly says. If it says privacy, or if it says a retriever, if it says the permission to be forgotten, we need to know what it actually means. So those were the things that we sat down as an organization working with the DPCO to really have an understanding of what is expected of us. That would help us to not to faff around and then reduce our turnaround time. So the data impact assessment has to do with the scoping too. And then capacity building. So we had to now, after we have identified where the data is where in the organization, we need to now do we need to now have a data protection officer. There's sub protection officer, and there's the big guy, the main guy, that's the main data protection officer, or you could, so that has the sub ones under him. So altogether we have like 6 within the organization, but they all work together. So that helps us decentralize it. So everybody in each area, in each department understands that I am in charge of the data that comes in, and I have a regulation to protect. At the same time, I have a data protection from information security management perspective to uphold. So we did that, and we ensured that we put the technical controls. I'm going to talk about that in the next question, to put the technical controls in place, because you can achieve data privacy, you can achieve data protection without data privacy, but you cannot achieve data privacy without data protection. Because if I have the certifications and I have all the articles implemented, I know the rights, I'm not seeking consent and I'm getting permission, but if there's a breach, so it falls like a pack of cards. So that took us to the data protection, the tools, the technical controls that we have put in place. So for us at the exchange, I think I will just go down the memory lane a bit. So it's for us, it's a journey that we didn't just start. So since the upgrade to the new trading system as far back as early 2010 to 2012, that was when we had the implementation, the exchange has been on a digitization, transformation, automation journey. So by 2014, we began the ISO 27001 standard information security management system certification. So by 2015, we got certified in that, and that was equally mapped to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So that, information security is not an end in itself. It's a journey and you keep improving over time. So we've been on this every year. We had the surveillance audit over and over. So we've been able to a very large extent, matured on the protection part. So when the privacy came in, it was so easy for us to merge the two and then, just look for what is missing and then plug the holes and then begin to run. So we look at it within any organization, systems, applications, whatever it is, you need to look at your architecture, your design, your implementation, and then the operation within the team. So those were the things we looked at to achieve data protection within the organization. Mind you, one of the issues for any change or for any project beyond the peculiarity of the framework itself, you need to have your stakeholder engagement, both internal and external stakeholder. You need to have your executive support. Your executive has to have a buy-in. They would provide the funds. They would provide the oversights. So we have that within the system from the executive level. So it was easy for them to hear us when we run into issues and when fundings are needed or their support is required. And then we had an internal stakeholder engagement. People need to know what is this for me. Why am I doing this? Why are you forcing me to suddenly begin to change what I've been doing from time? So we had an alignment. We had the DPCO coming to do an awareness. We began to do some, tips and the back sessions for everybody to be aware and then know that this is even a regulatory compliance that has a fine implication. So we began on that, and then that helped us. We did an external stakeholders engagement too. There's something we do called Nigerian Capital Market Information Security Forum. So when we called in the daily member firms, and then we did an awareness on Ndpr and the roadmap to it, where we called in the big three of the big fours in Nigeria, the Ernst & Young, the Anderson Tax, and then the KPMG, and as well as the DPCO. So that was a general market awareness that helped us with the market buy-in and be able to sell this. So coming to the tool, like I said, we ensure that we put the technical controls in place. We changed our visitors management system to an automated one. So we started from that. And then we have some network segregation is always in place, like I said, encryption, multi-factor authentication, of course, the antivirus and all that. So we ensure the in-house controls are in place, and that has helped us. And like I said, it's a journey. We keep improving and working on it. And that's where we are now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Oluyemi. I think that the next part is mine, which is more or less, I need to talk about the Ndpl compliance toolkit and give you insight into how this can be used or leveraged as organizations continue on the journey. Oluyemi, you highlighted a lot of things that are very, very important about the journey, that compliance, it's a journey. Compliance is a progressive journey which every organization needs to embark on. And you highlighted that you had already started this journey with ISO 27001 compliance, and which helped you on the way towards compliance, because as you said, and as we all agree, security and data protection are important when it comes to privacy. Okay, so before I talk and unpack what's in this toolkit for Ndpl compliance and the 5 ways, one of the things in which I want to do is to quickly talk about what the problems are. What are the problems? So here I have what we call the iceberg of risk and the causes of data breaches. At the moment, the world has changed significantly, and as Mr. Daniel highlighted, and also Mr. Lee, as COVID-19 has come to disrupt the way in which we live our lives. Before that, we also had a lot of technological advances in which has come, and all those are having an impact on the way we do business. So with COVID-19, we have organizations. Organizations are, for us to be able to compete, for us to be able to do business better, organizations have had to embark on digitization projects, to ensure that they stay in business, to ensure that they're able to support their customer base, they're able to bring in revenue for their organizations. However, some organizations are doing all that, working hard to put in the right systems, working hard to ensure we're able to serve our customers, but they are doing it without understanding what their risks are, particularly to do with data, the data breaches, and the breaches that could happen as a result of processing personal data. So, from my experience with working in Nigeria and helping organizations to comply, one of the biggest things in which we face is that a lot of organizations lack the understanding of the regulation and also lack the understanding of their obligations. They don't understand that the more they understand this regulation, the more they understand their obligations, the more they protect their organization. Because what I say to clients is that, look, understanding the regulation is like insurance. So you are understanding it, you are ensuring you imbibe a culture based around that and based around processing of that data to ensure you are able to stay in business. Cyber breaches, data breaches are real. As we continue our journey towards becoming more digitized, as we continue our journey towards becoming a digital economy, so will be the rise in data breaches. And those data breaches are going to be exponential. So it's important for us as organizations that want to stay in business. The cost to resolve a data breach for organizations in the West, from statistics, according to Forbes, when it comes to data breaches, in America, it costs about $7.9 million to resolve, on average, to resolve a data breach. Also in Brazil, it costs about 1.3 million. So there's a scale. We don't have the facts with regards to Nigeria, but what I'm certain is that as we continue on this journey towards digitization, our risks are going to continue to increase, and the cost to resolve breaches is also going to increase. So technical and organizational controls to protect that data, inefficient ones. It's important for organizations to understand that the framework that is provided by Ndpr introduces and asks or demands or requires organizations to introduce technical and organizational controls to protect the data. It's important for us to take this serious and to ensure that we don't only have information security policies and data protection policies, but we actually implement these as controls. So for instance, what Mr. Badari mentioned with regards to the to what they have done in the stock exchange is that they've started with ISO 27001 and they've continued on to introduce technical and organizational controls to ensure that they are not just having policies, but the policies are properly implemented. So the next thing that causes data breaches is badly designed software solutions. We have software solutions that's been deployed in our enterprises that is processing data, or we haven't done proper data protection impact assessment. As a result, those software solutions seemingly think to be adding benefit to organizations, but also increasing the level of our risk by introducing backdoors to hackers, backdoors to cyber threats, increasing the number of vulnerabilities we have across the organization. So staff training is also very important. Your staff, are they adequately trained? Do they understand Ndpl is your data protection officer training. You know, I've come across data protection officers that all they do is to wear a title. We need to move from that area where we're now 2 years into Ndpl. Organizations need to start to take this responsibility of training their staff to ensure they have the right protection, to ensure they have the right insurance. Also, when it comes to vendor management, right now, there's quite a lot of adoption in new cloud services, in new applications. I mean, are we ensuring that we're engaging with our vendors the right way? Do we understand the risks that are associated with outsourcing part of your business to a data controller? Are you ensuring that that data controller themselves, are they also complying with the regulation? Because you are entrusting the data of your clients, of your customers with a third party. Are you ensuring that that third party is also doing what they need to do according to the regulation to ensure that that data is protected and that data is secure? Okay, I'll quickly walk you through the 5 ways in which the Ndpr compliance toolkit can help and can solve some of the problems before we go into the demo. So the Ndpr compliance toolkit consists of 5 modules. There also that have been put in a bundle for ease for people to be able to install, deploy, and also procure. And there are also some additional modules as well. So the first thing when you do an audit, because at the moment, a lot of us are doing audit, or we should be doing the audit that is due. The audit report is due to be filed by the 15th of March. So one of the things in which is clear is that from the audit is that organizations are required to have an inventory of processing records. So the first module, which is the data processing inventory, allows organizations to be able to document their processing activities right across the organization. It also gives, allows and facilitates collaboration between your DPO, your DPCO, your legal team, and every team as well. It helps you to be able to track visibility and also see where your risks are. So for instance, if you have a cloud service provider that's based in the US and all that, it has a dashboard that will show you all that. You'll see that in the demo. Also, we have a risk management module. So when you do an audit really helps to highlight your risk. So what this module does is that it will help you to ensure that the risks in which you find either during the audit or after the audit, that you have a mechanism to ensure that those risks are properly rated, properly categorized. It also helps you to complete your data protection impact assessment, which are required for data processing, where you have the risk is high when it comes to the individuals such as Nigerian citizens or people who live in Nigeria, who reside in Nigeria legally. So we also have incident management as well. It's important for organizations. There are loads of data breaches that occur around, but nobody is keeping a record of them. You need to have control of this incident. You need to ensure that your incidents, not only do you know what they are, but they're fully investigated, they're remediated as well, so that you don't have a reoccurrence. And also, when you need to report a breach to NDPR, should you have to, you need information and you need evidence. All this will help you to be able to report to both NDPR and other stakeholders in which you have. So the 4th module is the data subject request management. So NDPR is about data subject, it's about their rights. NDPR affords data subjects rights. They have 8 different rights in which they can ask for their data from you. They can object to certain processing. They can also ask that to erase some of the data. When you have a huge customer base, how do you control all that? So what the data subject request management module does is that it helps you put all that in a workflow, and it helps you to ensure that you are able to track the data subject request from clients or from your employees, and help you to ensure that you are able to complete this within the 1 month that is given So the final model has to do with third-party management. How do you manage your vendors? How do you manage the people who you've outsourced? How do you ensure that things like their contracts, they're fully, you have the right kind of contracts in place? You track when the contracts are due. How do you ensure that you are holding your third parties accountable? Because now they have new responsibilities that is afforded to them, or new responsibilities and obligations under Ndpr. And the third party model will help you to ensure that you are able to do that. So I'll put a hold on that because of time, and hand over to Marianne, who will be taking us through a demo of these models, and also some optional models in which can be procured separately. Marianne?
Thank you very much for that, Ade. Over to Marianne for the presentation of the Ndpr Compliance Toolkit bundle. Thank you, Ade.
Thank you, Ade. Thank you, Joe. And hi, everyone. Like Ade said, I'm going to do a demo. I won't be talking so much, but I would just like to say thank you to all the participants in the panel. It was very interesting. So thank you, Oluyemi, thank you, Ade, and thank you, Olufemi. This was very interesting. What I think, while I log in, I might just say that as well. With Ndpr, I think it's very important to think about it from the global market perspective. I think it's very important for companies to stay competitive on the global market because of the free data flow and all the big wave of data protection regulations coming our way from different geographies. Also, I've seen a lot of people, so existing DPM customers on this call. I'm very happy to see you guys being here. But for all of you that are new and are not our existing customers, let me give you a short introduction. In the short time I have, I will try to do my best to be efficient. So what you are seeing here is the Data Privacy Manager Application Center, and this is a modular software. So all of these modules are actually designed to solve different practical problems. Ade already listed the modules which are included in the Ndpr bundle. And in my demo environment, I have the bank, the loan and the mortgage company. So this is a multi-tenant application. It can support one account with multiple organizations. And of course, it's multilingual. So what I'm going to start first is to show you the data processing inventory, which is where you keep all your records processing. So the processing activities together with all important information like the description of the processing and the owner of the activity and the role of the organization in the context of this processing, together with the purpose and the lawful basis for each purpose. Then we have third parties. So for each of the processing activities, what you need to do is if there is a third party which you are sharing data with, which is included in the data processing, then it will be visible here, together with information about how the data is being sent and processed by that third party. The list of third parties is managed in the third party management module, where we have a lot of information about the third parties, including the legal ground for sharing the data, and contracts can be visible there as well. Similar with systems, we have a list of systems which are registered in the Data Privacy Manager, and for all of the systems we can also define the role, which is either a storage use system or a source collection system. Then there is the part related to the risk assessments. Then we have the information about data subject categories, data categories, security measures. This is all referential data, so it is kept up to date centrally and by people who have permission to do so. So for the regular user, for the business owner who is in charge of keeping the processing activity up to date, it is up to him just to select from a list. There is no free text entry, so this is how we keep the data quality at a high level. Also, a part of the data processing activity module is the risk assessment part, where we have the central inventory or the central register of all risk assessments, which can then be assigned to different processing activities, so in an end-to-end relationship. Maybe just briefly to touch on the risk register and to show you that we have customizable risk methodologies. So the risk, how you keep privacy risks. So when we talk about privacy risks, these are risks from the perspective of the rights and freedoms of the individual. This is not like your regular financial or operational risks. What you can do is you can definitely customize this risk matrix to fit what you currently use in different areas of the business, and then map the risk scores to the matrix itself. And then we have the central view of all the risks which were raised during the risk assessments. And basically we can keep track and monitor the status of each risk going forward. So let me now jump to the consent and preference management module, which is kind of a standalone solution for managing all processing based on consents as the lawful basis. And when we talk about consent management, we are not just talking about the registers, we are also talking about what we call records of consent, where we have both the information about consent purpose, but also information about the individual data subject and his data, which was collected through the consent management process. So when talking about consent management, we get this data first by doing the administration part. So in this case, we have a couple of purposes which are based on consent as a lawful basis. So if we take a look at third-party marketing, we have the more information about the processing itself, but more importantly, we have the consent notice, which can be translated to multiple languages. We have the information about the acquisition and validity, which actually defines how long record will be kept before retaining the record. And this actually defines, for example, for marketing platforms which are connected with Data Privacy Manager, so they will get the right data at the right time. So when someone opts in, the data will be available to the marketing platform, and when someone opts out, the data will not be available to the marketing platform. Together with this, we can define the communication preferences, and we can check the progress of an individual consent purpose. And then we actually start getting the information about consents here in the records of consent. We do have consent forms, which are an out-of-the-box way to start collecting consents, but let me show you another way. We also have the privacy portal, which is a self-service web application used by the end individual. And in this case, you can see that, so this is the administration view, and you can change the look and feel of the application. What I'm going to show you now is how this will look from the end user perspective. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm currently creating some hashed temporary links for the end user, and once the end user gets this link, so this is one of the way in which the end user can access the privacy portal. When he does, it will look something like this. So what you are seeing now, this is the view of the end individual, where he can manage his consents and preferences. He can see the collected information about him or her, and also the My Requests page. Together with that, we have the company DPO information. So whatever you choose to be visible to the end individual, you can actually configure here in the administration view. So we can basically pick and choose what will be visible and in which form to the end individual. The idea and the goal of this application is, it is like a privacy corner for each customer of, say, this bank. where they can manage their own privacy settings and where they can actually see what data is being processed about them. So what this does is, let me go back to the data privacy manager, to the consent and preference management. We can check, for example, third-party marketing. We can see that we currently have 23 consents. And here, if I would to opt in as the end individual, this should then change. Sorry, so this is the wrong organization. So when you change the organization, you are actually changing the data. There is a logical and physical separation of the organization. So what you should see now is that the third-party marketing has changed to 29. If I would to opt out here, then it should again change to 28. And besides consents and preference management, one of the very neat features of the privacy portal, for example, is my requests, where you can, where an individual actually can create requests. Say they can choose to be forgotten. It says, say something like, please delete data. And if they submit a request, again, this is something that will be centrally visible in the data subject request management area, where me as the manager of the data subject requests will get a task, and then in this task I will see all the information. Please delete all my data, and then I can move on either to accept or reject. If I do accept, then I think the next step will definitely be there will be tasks created for the business owners, because I already know in the software where the data of this specific individual is being processed. So looking at the time, I think I will stop here. Joe, I will hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Marian, for such a well-delivered presentation. And thank you very much. We do have a number of questions that have been sent to us. So if I may, I'll just quickly read them out. But I'll just like to thank all our panelists so far for their insights so far. If I may read the question, and of course, any one of you of our illustrious panel can answer it. It's a question from Mona Assad. Mona Assad, thank you very much. It says, according to Ndpr, there's a distinct difference in definition between data controllers and data processors, and only data controllers are mandated to file an audit report by the 15th of March every year through a DPCO, with no mention of data processors being obliged to do so. The Draft Data Protection Bill 2020 mandates that data processors who possess more than 2,000 data subjects will be obliged to do so. As it is not yet enacted, the applicable law currently is the Ndpr. Please confirm if a data processor are in any obligation to file an audit report with NITDA as at March 2021. That's this year, in about 6 weeks' time. Who would care to provide an answer for that, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
I think since we have Mr. Olufemi Daniel from NITDA, I think it's best for us to hear from the horses now.
Naturally.
Thank you very much. That was a very good question. So the position when the Ndpr was issued was to try to streamline the lines of responsibility, but having gone through some experience, we've also seen that the issue of data controller and processor many times is nuanced. You could be, my business may be set up basically to process data on behalf of someone of the controller, but there are many instances that have been found that even the processor, also has a controlling responsibility. For example, a bank has a payment service provider that performs certain kinds of processing activities on behalf of the bank, that does not imply that this payment service provider does not also on its own determine and decide on how and what data should be used for. It may not be directly the banking data, but this data processor also has employees, also receives visitors, also does some other services that, people that makes it to determine the use of data. So in essence, while that position you mentioned is correct, if all that a person does, if all that an organization does is to process data on behalf of another entity, then the responsibility for filing would be on that other entity. But from practical expression of what we've seen, it is almost impossible for a processor in one way or the other not to be controlling data. And so if it can be proven that a processor is processing at least up to 2,000 data that the organization has control over, they will be expected to still file their data audit report. And based on the framework, we've also made some clarifications of this position in the implementation framework. So if a data processor is processing on my behalf, it is expected that that processor should meet all the requirements that I am expected to have, because if you are a controller, you are meeting up with the expectations of the Ndpr, and the data processor is not meeting up. And don't forget, filing of an audit report is just one out of the many controls that we are trying to put in place. It does not exculpate anybody from responsibility for data protection to ensure, confidentiality, integrity, availability of data, to ensure that there are processes and proper documentations for how data is being used and processed. So the fact that you are not filing an audit report does not mean that the other responsibilities in the Ndpr does not apply to you. So we have grown in understanding and learning, but every day we are trying to make it better and to clarify things as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Femi, for that answer. Mona, I hope that did address your question. Are there any other questions? If I may add, within the context of what Femi has added, I think with any process, especially within Africa, where there is, and Nigeria in particular, where there is compliance and enforcement, which both have to go hand in hand, everything will be undertaken as part of a journey. As our panelists have so much provided their insights on, nothing will happen overnight. There will be no magic wand to dispel and provide all the solutions. Single body, it has to be collective. All of us as citizens of the country are with and are using data, as well as those who profess to use the data, will all have to put a hand. However, it is left to the good governance of policies, as well as the actions of Ndpr in that journey, and obviously take out actions upon.
Okay, so but what I'll add to what Mr. Daniel said, and also to shed some light on this, is that there seems to be quite a lot of focus on audits, and it's not really about the audits. Really, the audit really is just a means, a mechanism to ensure that people are able to identify the risks in which they are carrying. It's about what you do when you know. So every organization at the moment in Nigeria is carrying risks. Remember the iceberg that I shared with you. So as an organization that is responsible to its stakeholders, it's important for you to ensure you take this serious. So forget the audits, yeah. In other nations, this Ndpl audit is something that is quite unique to Nigeria. And I believe it's actually a value add, because it allows you to be able to get a professional in to do an audit, and they tell you that these are your areas where you need to comply. So it's important for you to take those things serious and ensure you go about addressing and implementing controls. You know, compliance is a journey. You know, the audit might be the start of your journey, but you need to ensure that you walk on that journey to increase and continue to increase your level of compliance to the regulation, to ensure that you are safeguarding the data, because data is very valuable. Data is an asset, and we need to start to treat it as an asset. An asset is something that has value, and you protect it and you secure it, and you ensure that you put your business in a position that you can't go out of business. Joe, I'll hand over to you for you to continue.
Thank you very much, Adi, for that insight as well. If any of our other panelists would like to provide a final word before we duly round up, if I may ask Oluyemi to provide her thoughts pretty much on what she thinks enforcement and the direction of enforcement will take within, of course, the NSC and, of course, the wider context. Thank you.
Direction of enforcement, I guess that's for Nita to say, but for us, for me, from my organization perspective, and to everyone out there, you know, wishing to go on this journey, already on this journey, I would just want to say that, like we've said it over and over, it's actually a journey. That's what it is. You know, it's not an end in itself. Even filing and all that, auditing doesn't mean that you may not have one or two issues, but the most important thing is that what are the controls you have in place and what's the plan to mitigate this? So it's not like it's coming down and then, you know, dumping it on us and then we're all over the place. No, it's a process, you know. We start it and then we begin to improve as we move on, and then we begin to add value both to the system, to ourselves, and then get the confidence of our data subjects. So it's where we are now. So digitization is the way to go, and then COVID-19 has more than ever eroded it. You know, COVID-19, it was something we thought remote work was something that a lot of organizations thought never was going to be possible, particularly in this climate, but when COVID-19 came, there was no other option because it was a matter of survival and sustainability. So I would just say to everyone here that it's a journey, get on board, and then begin small, scoping, start from where you are now. And that's where you have the Dataworks analytics for you there. So they would handhold you on the journey. And then you begin to put this process in place, begin to onboard your tools and solutions. And then we would all get there. So, and by the time we begin this regulation and then meeting up with deadlines wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be something that's unachievable. We would achieve it together, because what's in it for us? It's of immense value. Data protection is very much needed in the advent of cybersecurity and cyber breaches. That is where it is now. Why someone once said I saw a cartoon that had some set of robbers or whatever they are, and then the boss went to them and gave them a keyboard and said, this is your tool now. So you're no longer going to be picking pockets or no longer going to be stabbing or, you know, pointing gun at people. He just said, this is the new strategy. He gave them the keyboard, that this is the new tool. So what are we saying? It's data. We're talking about data, the new oil, you know, so that's where it is now. And then that's the data now. That's where the protection lies. That's where the big risk lies. And that is where the sustainability of any business lies, is out there in the open. So the earlier we get on board this, the better for all of us. And that prevents neither from wielding the big stick around us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Oluyemi. Femi, would you like to provide a final word and thoughts on enforcement, really, and how NIDA, just a summary on how NIDA will start to tackle and become more prominent and be taken seriously? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yemi, and I must say that the Nigerian Stock Exchange had actually been a partner. And the first The first seminar I had on Ndpr compliance was at the NSE, and we've learned a lot. NSE is one of the most very well-run organizations, and I'm happy and proud to say that. I mean, our stock exchange, we can say that our stock exchange is actually better than even almost Wall Street, going by what we are saying now. But let me not go into that now. The point of the matter is, when the Ndpr came on board, we know that the easiest thing for government to do is to say we want to wield a big stick. But some of us that came also from the private sector and also have very deep roots with people in business, we understand that every regulatory move, for it to be sustainable, you need to invest in awareness, invest in trainings, invest in stakeholder engagements, and let the process grow. Yes, the reason why a lot of people know the GDPR is because of the fines regime. That is why there had been a data protection regulation in Europe since the 70s, and we've had a data protection directive since 1995, and the GDPR came on board, and suddenly it became the buzz. Why? Because of the fines regime. Now we are getting there, and this year is there's going to be much more enforcement activities going forward, and we've started that last week. First, let me even say that Nigeria was the only country in Africa to issue a fine to any organization in 2020. And it wasn't just a small fry. We issued it against the Lagos Internal Revenue Service, and we're the only country in Africa that issued a data protection implementation report, which shows clearly where we are, where we ought to be, the deficiencies of our implementation, and the things that we'll be doing going forward. It even summarizes NITDA's own Ndpr audit report to show our weaknesses, the strengths, and what we intend to do going forward. So if there is any data protection authority in Africa that had actually been active in terms of responsibility and trying to generate activities that are value adding, I think we've done that. Going forward, one of the things we've said, while we don't intend to put everybody in prison for non-compliance, but first, we want to make people understand that you comply for your own good. Anybody who wants to be an active and trusted person in the digital economy must show that he takes data seriously. So how do we ensure that people know those who are taking data seriously? First, we have started, and that is number one, that is first in the whole world. We have started having a list, an annual list of data filing compliance organizations. In this list, you can see all in the banking sector, about 13 sectors. You can see in the financial sectors which banks are complying with audit filing requirements or not. Before someone will say, I am not on that list, but I am complying, the person would need to more explanations than the person who is on that list. So that number one gives us a clear, and this list is now a reference point globally, because people from Europe, from Asia, from America are saying, okay, we have checked this list, you are not on that list. And people will start coming about, oh, I'm not on the list. Yes, you are not on the list because we didn't find you on the list, So that is one, methodology that we're trying to adopt in that regard. But that is not all. The second thing that was said just last week at our National Data Protection Privacy Week is that any organization that does not show compliance. The other thing we've said is that if you want to have any business to do with government, you must show that you have done, and like Ade said, this Ndpr compliant filing is a baseline. It's just for us to have, number one, to know where you are, to understand this is where the basic that you have done. It doesn't mean that everybody who has filed an audit report is 100% data protection compliant, but for the kind of society we have, and that's why regulations must not just copy and paste. You must understand the social context we are, and that is what the Ndpr has tried to do, to contextualize data protection, to make it easy for Nigerians and Nigerian entities to comply. So the second thing is, we are, from going forward from this budgetary cycle, any organization that wants to provide particularly digital and ICT-based kind of projects, because we do IT project clearance at NIDA, everybody must show that you have complied with the Ndpr audit filing requirement. That is another major thing that we're doing. But the third thing is that we are now going into the issue of sectoral implementation and enforcement. So there are ways in which stock exchange. Last year we had a very robust engagement with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we're actually working on sectoral tools for this year. We are working for the Securities and Exchange security sector. We are doing the same for health sector and one or two others based on our plans. Now, what this is going to do is that if, as an health providing institution, there are certain things you're supposed to do, because we are saying this is beyond filing data audit report. If there are ways in which you can reduce the information you collect, there should be a standard for that sector. If there are ways in which you can communicate without breaching confidentiality and privacy, then everybody should have that. By us having these kind of sectoral tools, it would also encourage those who are in various sectors to begin to increase their compliance. And those who are not meeting up will be easily identifiable, and we can easily say, these organizations were given an opportunity to do what they're supposed to do, but they could not. But finally, we're going to be seeing much more enforcement this year than before. And the enforcement is not just about being in Nigeria. In the last few months, what we have done, particularly from NIDA, we have been able to establish solid relationships with a couple of multinational organizations. NIDA is now a member of the Common Trade of Nations that involves everybody, every data protection authority in Commonwealth, and you see that is a wide range of countries. That implies that when you breach data of Nigerians and you are in Grenada, you are in Canada and any other kind of country, we can easily, with this network, ensure that is being enforced over there, even for the breach of Nigerians' data. Currently we are part of the African Network of Data Protection Authorities, and that is also an advantage that we have to enforce extraterritorially. So if you have your data in Ghana, in Benin Republic, and it's being breached, we can actually get the Data Protection Authority of Benin Republic to enforce. And just yesterday, we had a meeting with the Council of Europe, with the African Data Protection Authorities. There is a lot of synergy that is coming up between us and Europe in terms of enforcement and capacity building and things like and other related issues. So what this is, while the noise, we have not started making the noise of, okay, we'll find you this, we'll find you that, but we have built a structure that now makes it almost impracticable. If we really want to now start issuing fines, we can tell you, well, you see that you take Nigeria's fine of 2% of your annual gross revenue, or you take the European fine of 4% of your global turnover. Which one would you prefer? And that becomes a bargaining tool. It is a more realistic modernistic regulatory way of approaching issues rather than going, piecemeal, and we are just all about trying to chase down people. The cybersecurity is global, data privacy is global, and we need to have that global approach to our enforcement. And that's
I'm going to hold you in a spot there, Femi, as you go on. Maybe you might be able to shed light or answer one of the questions. Go on,
Okay.
Ade.
Let me ask the question, yeah? And this question is to Mr. Daniel. It's a NITA specific question. So it's from an anonymous attendee, but the question says, most companies, especially the loan companies, do not respect privacy rights, and their policy notices are not compliant with Ndpr. What is NITA doing about this? I think you've answered it, but
I could shed more light on it very briefly, because I was personally involved in an investigation visit to one of the loan companies just around in November, December, and the loan company, I don't want to mention name now, they are actually, it's more or less like a kind of a criminal organization, because we went to their registered office, they were not there, and the other office, they just take people's information. When you take a loan, they have access to your phone contact records, and they begin to send, information to all the people on your contacts, to say that you have defaulted, and the person that defaulted just defaulted about 3,000 naira, which is not supposed to be. So it's a real problem. We acknowledge it, and that is one of the things that we're actually looking at working on this year. Because the truth of the matter is that NIDA is not interested in stifling innovation. People need loans, but we need to ensure that whatever people are doing to achieve their legitimate business is done in a dignified manner. You don't go around destroying the personality of people just because you are providing a service. So it's something I need that, like I've said, we were there and we've been investigating, but we are going to look at a much more, compliance, enhancing approach to help the loan companies and some other micro lending organizations to be able to be more compliant with the Ndpr. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Daniel. I think we've kind of overrun it a bit, but before we kind of wind down, there is a poll that it's open up on your screen. If you can kindly just answer go through the poll questions so that we can share the results to everyone, so that we can know exactly where we're at on, and after that we will close and wind down the session because we've kind of overrun a bit. But we hope it's been a useful experience, and we hope you've been able to gain.
Thanks for stepping in briefly for me, Ade.
I think Mr. Dede has some connectivity problems, so I think I would. So if you can quickly just go through the polls for us, and yes, we have 28 people on the call. Only about 9 of you have participated. Let's have some fun here. If you can quickly just answer it, and then we'll then share the results of the polling before we end the session. Let's do this quickly. So that we can end the session.
Thanks for that, Ade. Naturally, we're not allowed as panelists or hosts to participate in the poll. The poll is purely for yourselves, attendees. If I may, the first question is, as an organization, do you have working processes to handle change management in terms of introducing technology in your organization? A simple yes or no will suffice to that.
Okay, what I'll suggest is that we wrap this up in the next minute or two to ensure that we're able to wind this down and end the session. And we'll then present the results of the poll to you quickly, so that you can have a view of what is happening within. The more people that participate in it, the better the results and the more robust the results that we'll get, and the more insightful they'll be.
Thank you. The second question has been put there with regards to a poll. What has been the biggest impediment to the introduction of privacy and security enhancing technology in your organization? The third question is, as a Nigerian resident, do you understand the right to privacy afforded to you by the Ndpr and its benefits? Again, a simple yes or no. And the fourth question, has the organization completed and filed its own Ndpr audit due by the 15th of March? Again, a simple yes or no should suffice. Thank you. And our fifth question is, as an organization, do you have the measures, technical and non-technical, in place to enforce Nigerian data protection regulation in your organization? Again, a yes, well, three answers actually, yes, no, and some measures. And the final question, again, just select using the radio buttons. What is the biggest Ndpr compliance challenge faced by your organization? This multiple choice. Leaders within the organization are not aware of the regulation. There's no budget in place on Ndpr compliance. No one is taking ownership for it. Staff are not aware of the regulation and lack of skilled resources. Again, select the radio buttons that apply to your choices. Thank you, and then submit.
Okay, I think it's best for us to end the poll now, and we'll just end the poll and just share the results with each and every one of you as we round up. Joe, if you want to quickly just review that. Yes. And just say what.
Now, our first question was, as an organization, do you have working processes in place to handle change management in terms of introducing technology in an organization? 78.6% of respondents said yes, with the rest 28.6% responding no. Second one, what is the biggest impediment to introduction of privacy, security, and enhanced technology in organization? The highest respondents, again, were all of the above, with the second being resistance to change by staff not willing to accept transition. The third question was, as a Nigerian citizen or resident, do you understand the right to privacy afforded to you by the Ndpr's benefits? Slightly skewed here, majority obviously answering yes to this. So by now, we believe that the awareness programs and campaigns have been working. And of course, NITDA's campaigns have been working in parallel as well. The fourth question, has the organization completed and filed its Ndpr audit due by the 15th of March, 2021? Majority of the respondents said no. So this is the time to get on board. Please do feel free to get in contact with Dataworks through the website or via additional contact information which we posted. Thank you very much. The fifth question was, as an organization, do you have the measures, technical and non-technical, in place to enforce Nigeria data protection regulation in your organization? Again, the majority of the respondents answered yes, with the second answer being some measures. Again, if you have challenges or gaps, please do feel free to get in contact with us or your relevant DPCO, but we prefer you come to us, of course. And final question, what is the biggest Ndpr compliance challenge faced by your organization? Again, majority of the respondents came back with the lack of skilled resources, which is not too much of a surprise. There is a huge skills gap from what I've been led to believe, which is depending on which sources you go to, anything ranging from 250,000 to 500,000 potentially job vacancies. Thank you very much for taking time from your very busy schedule. And naturally, to Marian again, thank you very much as our distinguished partner for providing your guidance and navigation through the actual use of the tool. Again, please do not hesitate to either come through our website to get your free trial or demo, introductory demo for a limited period, of course, until the 15th of February of the Ndpr Compliance Toolkit, which is a dedicated and customized flavor of the Compliance Toolkit specifically for the Nigerian market. Thanks again for all the attendees, and we look forward to having you grace us with your presence at our next webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Thank you, Mr. Badare. Thank you, Marianne. And thank you to all the attendees. We hope the session was insightful. And we hope that everyone else now understands more of the obligations and why it's important. It's not only about an audit. So let's do the needful. And as Joe said, we'll see you all at our next webinar. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a pleasant day, everybody, and stay safe. Thank you.